supposed to do? Kill Mufasa?
Precisely.
Disney is a multi-billion-dollar corporation which creates products for people to consume. One of these products is films, and while they used to create 2D animated classics back in the day, now they're creating 3D animated films. Compared to Pixar, which Disney also owns, Walt Disney Animation is doing a lot better, as Pixar seems to be struggling with coming up with original ideas and have resorted to start pumping out sequels to their films for no particular reason other than money. Disney also owns Marvel, which means that every single movie Marvel pumps out is Disney's. So here's the thing, right? To stay afloat, smaller companies resort to creating sequels to their movies because they can't really afford to make a movie that fails and doesn't do well in the box office. That's why there's so many Shreks, 3 How to Train Your Dragons, there was a sequel to Rio surprisingly, and so many more. They hope for an assured victory so they can fund new original projects. Disney doesn't have this problem. They have so much money, they could probably buy the entire United States. Actually, they probably already own it. Disney can afford to make new things, but they don't do it regularly enough. Actually, we usually get remakes and sequels rather than original films from Disney for some reason. I really enjoy Walt Disney Animation Studios because they keep pumping out films like Frozen, Moana, Zootopia, which are pretty much original, but other than that, every single other product is based off something that already exists. And the biggest offender is Disney's live-action films department. Here's the Walt Disney Studios release schedule for 2018 to 2019. Which movie there is an original movie based on nothing? That's right, penguins. It's not the biggest problem in the world, it's just frustrating that Disney keeps resorting to milking older concepts and older stories rather than trying to create fresh new ones. It's a saying that Disney doesn't innovate as much anymore, they just see other people make cool stuff and they buy those people. They just bought Fox recently, also, they're that huge. Now, why is there a 4th Toy Story coming out when the 3rd ended so perfectly? Money. Why is there a prequel to a character that's already dead in the Star Wars universe? Money. The biggest problem Disney has, to me, is the remakes, and that's the main topic we're going to highlight today. In 2019, Disney is pumping out 4 live-action properties: Dumbo, Aladdin, The Lion King, and yeah, there's a 4th one, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, a movie no one asked for. Instead of making movies like this and Alice Through the Looking Glass, why don't they take a risk and try something new? Anyways, that's 4 live-action properties. Technically, The Lion King is a purely CG film that just looks live-action, but we'll talk about that later. Now, Dumbo was a box office bomb. Do you know how much it made domestically in its first week? $58 million. That's it. It cost $170 million to make. They'll probably break even, but just barely. And also, the release date for Dumbo was not the best. The original Dumbo, Aladdin, and Lion King are classics because even though they were 2D animated films, there was a passion and creativity put into the films. They were original stories which had a whimsical aesthetic and breathtaking animation and cinematography. Some of this magic can't be replicated into something that looks like it's real life. These movies are animated films for a reason, and even if they wanted to make something as whimsical and as fantastical while making things seem more realistic, they aren't pushing it enough. They aren't pushing the one thing that makes the original films great enough, and that's the personality these films have. Look at Detective Pikachu. They were going for realism, but they wanted to stay true to the design of these Pokemon. They kept the design and wanted to find a way to merge them into real life, and it worked. Not only because the characters look wacky and goofy and over the top, but because everything else looks wacky and goofy and over the top. The world, the environments, the story, the concept of it all. Meanwhile, we have films like the Aladdin remake. It's just a remake of the original with less overacting and humor because a lot of that comes from animation in general, and it also has a lot less color. Animation doesn't really translate to the real world. People don't do crazy expressions like this in reality, and if they do, they're probably really weird. In animation, they teach you to exaggerate a character's movements and emotions because it's easier to convey what the character is feeling to the audience if everything is slightly more exaggerated. Emotions and feelings have to be unmistakable so the audience can clearly understand what is going on and what the characters feel. Now we get to the Lion King remake, and man, does this thing look super bland. Now don't get me wrong, all of the movies I've talked about so far have had a lot of people work their asses off to pull them off, and I respect the craft, and the work everyone puts in is amazing. But this isn't an issue of how these films should be made, it's more, these films should have never been made in the first place. The Lion King remake is absolutely gorgeous VFX-wise. Everything looks photoreal pretty much, and that's incredible. But I think that's all Disney is marketing the movie as, a photoreal version of a beloved classic. And if you watch the trailer, there is no facial expressions. At all. Who is Simba in this scene? What is Scar feeling here? Is he trying to be threatening? Is he being pompous? I don't know. This is another problem of translating the expressiveness of animation to something that resembles live action. These are meant to be real lions, real animals, and real animals cannot emote the way real people do. It'd be something incredibly hard to pull off, and even if it is pulled off, it will never be as expressive as the 2D animated film. That's why in every Disney animated movie that stars an animal, human traits are added to the animal so the viewer can connect with the characters better. In this live-action Lion King, all of that is gone. It's devoid of artistic expression and ultimately ends up looking like someone's VFX reel or a VFX showcase. It's also a frustrating thing to see something you love be replicated in a way that doesn't match up to the original. It's as if they didn't care enough, even though they probably did. It's just the direction they went for is as uninspired and bland as they come. Now the thing is, right, and this is the main point, this is probably the main problem with Disney live action or VFX making it look live action and remakes in general, honestly. You don't get attached to the characters because you know what'll happen to them at this point. And even worse, this version of the character is not really the same as your version of the character, which pulls you away from the movie even more. And lastly, you watch the remake comparing it to the original, and don't think of it as its own thing. It doesn't really have anything new to offer, so all you're left with is comparing which is the better film, and it's pretty clear which is going to be the better one. I think people in the industry know this. Disney has a tried and true formula, and some people are okay with that. There really isn't anything wrong with that. And unless everyone clamors at Disney to stop, nothing is going to change. Now, Zootopia is one of the few completely original films that Disney has created in the last few years. One of the directors is Rich Moore, and Rich Moore recently left Disney to go work at Sony Pictures Animation. And that may sound insane because they made the Emoji Movie, but they also made Spider-Verse. And it's weird projects like the Emoji Movie and Spider-Verse that may interest creators. Because that means, good or bad, the company tried to do something different, create something new by expanding on something that's been made, whether it be emojis or superheroes. It's probably something to do with creative freedom, and if it is, I respect that decision. Plus, Sony Pictures Animation doesn't even look bad. The Emoji Movie looked fine, it's just the story that was lacking. If Sony Pictures Animation gets incredible storytellers that have incredible new ideas, then there may be a new powerhouse coming to the table. Speaking of coming to the table, thanks for coming to the table, guys. I made this video as a last-minute commentary on Disney and remakes because my Shazam video was delayed for next week because of the sponsor I'm working with, so make sure to check that video out when it comes out. It's going to be coming out April 17th. Now make sure to check out the channel's Reddit, and there's also Teespring merch. Thanks so much, patrons. Thank you so much, Lucas and Nick, for giving me this idea, and thanks again, guys, for watching the video. I'll see you all next time.